When we were growing up, we did grow up very poor. And the first goal was, how do we not have a Wednesday night budget night where we're doing it down to the nickel and just trying to survive? So that was the first goal. So early on, it was just, how do I get into a field where I can make a good living? And it really took until, honestly, it took until I started my company to not be like $1,000 to $3,000 in credit card debt. And let's forget the $75,000 of student loans. But once I started my company, then all of a sudden the world just opened up to so many opportunities and abilities to make income, to where it wasn't too many years later. I think there's a picture of me with my snowboard on Heavenly Ski Resort in Lake Tahoe in 2019. And I had sold my first ever residential property that I had house hacked, and I paid off my student loans with that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Eddie Austin BEX podcast. I have a special guest on today, Kristi Kandel, the local real estate developer. She has an amazing background in real estate development. And Kristi, I would love for you to share with the audience your amazing background and where you started and where you are today. I think my audience would get a lot of value.
Well, thank you for having me, Eddie. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and after college, I wanted to pick one of three places to live because I was shooting for quality of life. So for me, it was North Carolina, Florida, or California. I thought, well, California is a little too expensive, and North Carolina seems too much like Ohio, so Florida and the beaches it is. So and I had waited tables through college, but I figured I should probably go down to a job fair so I didn't give my dad a complete heart attack. And because I knew I could wait tables, I could bartend. But I go to this job fair and ended up getting an interview with a sign company that I ended up getting the job with. And it happened that they were putting up the signs for CVS Pharmacy. And at the time, that was when CVS and Walgreens were on every single corner in Florida. And if they weren't, they were building a new store. So for about a year, I was working with the different developers and really starting to understand how development worked and how towns were formed. And one day I looked at the developer, Bose Development in Clearwater Beach, and I said, hey, what's it take to be a developer? And Eric looked at me and he said, well, for us, we're a smaller company, so you just have to be the right person and we'll teach you how we do development. It's like, great. When are you hiring me? And because I had been interviewing with them, I had been working with them, they understood my work ethic. I was actually hired 3 weeks later. And 2 weeks into that, two of the guys were in California. And it just so happened, because it was 2009, when the real estate market had just crashed, Family Dollar wanted to expand to California. And they wanted our company to lead them over there doing it. And we worked in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, but not too many other states. I raised my hand and said, hey guys, I'm the only one without a spouse and a couple kids. I'm the lowest risk person. I'll go open our California office. So in 2010, I ended up opening our office in Orange County, California. And for the next 4 years, I worked from San Francisco down to San Diego doing 30 ground up development projects a year. So from the time the real estate guys got the dirt under contract, I was going into cities doing due diligence, finding and vetting the architects and engineers, taking the project through entitlements, permitting, dry utilities, and construction. So it was a whirlwind of 4 years, probably 60 to 80-hour weeks, but it was completely worth it because one day my mentor, Vasanti, looks at me and she goes, Kristi, over the past 4 years, you've gained a 30-year career worth of experience. I was like, wait, what? So the entrepreneur in me lit up and went, okay, this sounds good. But I still had a little imposter syndrome. I said, these are single tenant 1 to 2 acre projects. The bigger ones have to be more difficult. So I ended up working with a developer in Newport Beach, and we did 5 to 30 acre projects. And we did industrial, we did mixed use, we did residential. And I quickly realized it's all the same steps. You just get more time and more money the bigger the project is, because everyone knows it's going to take longer and be more complex. So it was It was in late 2014, and then officially in 2015, I created my own company and decided it was time to start making my dreams come true. And we're 10 years later, and it's been a heck of a ride. I've done development, consulting, invested in my own smaller multifamily portfolio of short term rentals, midterm, long term, in a couple states, built several companies that were compatible through that, built hydrogen fueling stations in California for the hydrogen cars and semis. And just recently in the last year, decided I wanted to take all of, and really it happened after Hurricane Ian destroyed my community in 2022. But I wanted to find a way to give back. And that's where Local Real Estate Developers was born, to help educate and bring other people into this field and to help them be the developer in their community.
Man, I love that. And thanks for sharing, because, that in a sense is the inspirational story that we think isn't that, cool or important. But when somebody else asks us the question like, wow, you've got 30 years under your belt, then at that point it clicks to you. You're like, wow, I have done a lot. And I wanted to ask you this question because, when we first talked, and we've had a very, diverse, very dynamic background, relatively similar, but I got to a point in life that I had this huge hole. Even though I had climbed this monstrous fictitious mountain, I was left with this huge hole and I didn't know what that was. Did you experience the same thing?
It was actually in 2021, a year before Hurricane Ian, and I had joined a program called Strategic Coach. They taught us how to create self-managing companies, and I did that. And I automated and I delegated and I empowered. And I was like, wait, I did all the things I was told I was supposed to do, but I'm missing something huge. Like, what's going to get me out of the bed in the morning? What's going to make me go, like what's next? And yeah, that's exactly how it started, with an idea of, let's create the freedom hacker movement and teach as many people as possible how to get the life of freedom, time freedom that I found. And it just was too wide. And just over time and working towards it is where we really honed in and went, like, why don't we take what I've done in my 50,000 hours for the past almost 20 years, and let's find a way to empower other people with that.
There you go. And, so that was that pivotal moment for you that you started to fill that hole back up, right? You started to figure that out. And for me, even like this week, I had a phone call with an old friend and a real estate broker. And he's like, Eddie, I haven't heard from you in a while. And he says, I've got this, really, money making building for you. And it's an apartment building and it's mixed use. And he's telling me all about it. And I'm listening to be respectful, but I'm like, that sounds great, but it just sounds like a lot of work. And I know at one point I was pitching to one of my fellow entrepreneur friends that had done very well for himself. And he goes, Eddie, I love what you're doing, buddy, but it sounds like a job. And I was like, it does sound like a job. And when he was pitching that to me, like, that was my opportunity to turn around and say to him, I love what you're telling me. And it's probably a great opportunity, but it sounds like a job. And I said, let me ask you a question. Let's just go down this hypothetically real quick. If I was to buy that building, how much would I need to be hands-on? And he goes, well, you'd have to do this. You'd have to manage that. Yeah, you definitely need to be. And I said, that's just not me. I said, because right now I'm time rich. I said, right now, if I wanted to go have lunch with you, can we go have lunch? Well, I'd have to stop a few things, but we could probably make lunch happen. I said, what if we want to go play golf for the rest of the day? He goes, definitely couldn't do that. And I said, see, if I went down that road, I wouldn't be time rich because I'd be committed. And I thought, what really started filling my hole up is I realized that I had done all these things just to chase money. Like, everything I was doing to chase money. But the problem was, is I was still trading these hours for dollars. And the only way I was ever going to get time rich was I had to break that chain. Like, the trading the hour for dollar, there was never a formula that would actually work. But what I did found, what started filling my hole up, was the same as yours, is it was empowering other people. Now today, if I'm going through my week and I get low on my energy, I simply ask myself, how many people have I helped today? And that usually tells me Eddie, you haven't helped a single person, and that's on Thursday, right?
I
That's why.
love when you mention that because it really made me think, and it's so true. Because when I had calls, like when we were getting to know each other, or if I have interest calls for people wanting to get in the program, or our mentorship calls, yeah, like there are days where they will be back to back to back, but I'll be so high on energy by the end because
Yeah, up here.
I see the lights go off in their heads. They go, "Oh, I can do this. I was stuck before and now I've got this, this, and this. There's a path forward." I get excited just thinking about that right now.
That's it. And it's just so during your journey, you were definitely honed in on something. You probably didn't know what the direction was at that moment, but you were just excited about learning this new skill. So what kept you going during that?
When we were growing up, we did grow up very poor. And the first goal was, how do we not have a Wednesday night budget night where we're doing it down to the nickel and just trying to survive? So that was the first goal. So early on, it was just, how do I get into a field where I can make a good living? And it really took until, honestly, it took until I started my company to not be like $1,000 to $3,000 in credit card debt, and let's forget the 75,000 of student loans. But once I started my company, then all of a sudden the world just opened up to so many opportunities and abilities to make income, to where it wasn't too many years later. I think there's a picture of me with my snowboard on Heavenly Ski Resort in Lake Tahoe in 2019. And I had sold my first ever residential property that I had house hacked, and I paid off my student loans with that. And it was the
So
most
cool.
freeing feeling in the world, because then I realized, wait, because the current property I lived in was also a house hack. So I was technically living for free. My ball and chain of student loans were gone. And now that didn't count any other sources of income and properties and development that I had. And I was like, whoa, I never have to work for the man again. This is
Right,
amazing.
right. And that was the ultimate like rocket fuel to everything else, right? Is you figured it out. That's another thing. I just read a great book by Mark Cuban, and he's like, look, and we've heard it from Warren Buffett and a lot of people. Try a lot of things when you're starting out, and just do so many things. Figure out what you're obsessed with. Figure out what makes you tick. And then look, it's okay to be wrong. Nobody's keeping count. And there's nobody that's putting hash marks on the wall about how many times you're wrong. But you only have to be right once. And that was your time. Like I'm sure before that you were trying a lot of things. Like you probably had a lot of late nights, scratching things on a legal pad, just talking to yourself in the mirror, and you're like, what is the answer? Like, and you didn't figure it out. And you're probably wrong a lot, right?
I love Michael Jordan's quote on what I've failed, like how many missed shots has he had. And I just like the idea that if you're not failing, you're not trying and you're being stagnant. And I've always been one to be curious and to push forward. And it reminds me of when I was still in Southern California and huge into beach volleyball, and we had friends in Manhattan Beach, which is a very affluent area. And we were able to do things like hold the Stanley Cup when the Kings won and to do different things. And I realized, wait, all of these people who are very wealthy still aren't happy. And
No.
it really made me question where my ladder I was climbing in the corporate world. Why was my ladder on that? Because my purpose was to start off by just making ends meet and to not always have it be a struggle. And if I wanted to buy a new pair of shoes, I could buy a new pair of shoes. But then I realized, wait, these people can do any of that and they're still not happy. And so it just made me stay more curious to go, okay, wait, if that's not where happiness is, where is it?
Yeah. So you figured out that you weren't afraid to fail and you just kept trying and trying. And then finally, this one thing works. And now what do you do with it? Like, now it's a time to scale. Like, what is it you did from that point? They're like, this worked. And now you've created this freedom. So, how did you scale it?
So year one was the proof of concept. And I remember buying an SUV and laying in the back of the Nissan Rogue and went, hey, if I need to, I let my apartment lease go. And I was just Airbnb a month at a time. I said, worst comes to worst, I can sleep in my car. I'm like, I'm not going to be dead. I'm not going to be injured. Okay. And then I get to the end of year one and I had replaced my 6-figure salary. And I went, whoa, like this was almost supposed to just be a 1-year sabbatical. And then I could go back into the corporate world. and it worked. And we have clients who have repeat business, and we're working with Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, and we're working with our partner with hydrogen fueling stations. And I went, whoa, I now have found this quality of life and this different freedom. So then I created our, I don't know if you've heard of the Vivid Visions, the 3-year plans, but I had created that. And part of that was my purpose was I wanted to work with clients who I wanted to help them be successful because I believed in what they were doing. I wanted the people we were working with them to be successful personally and to make their lives a little bit easier. And I wanted to be able to hire people that I could then bring in and show them, hey, you don't have to work for a boss who's an egomaniac or just it's uncomfortable to be in there, or you don't have to have a poor quality of life and hate your job. You don't have to have the Sunday scaries and go, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to work on Mondays. So I made it my goal to see how can I bring in as many people as possible to help give them the life that I had found. And that's
Very
where
cool.
it start to build systems and processes, start to bring the people in, and start to build the company at that point.
Very cool. For me, the pivotal moment came down to somebody to ask me, a mentor that was way, way in front of me, and he was a great mentor. And I didn't even know everything about this gentleman at this time, but he asked me this question, and it sounds like I'm bringing this up because it sounds like almost the same thing that came to you on your own. And he said, Eddie, what could you be capable of if you didn't have a job? Now, we've all, drove down the road. We've all sat at a late night around a campfire and just joked around with your friends about, man, what would it be like if we didn't have a job? And, all those things. And you've told yourself this before, like, what would it be like if I didn't have a job? And when he asked me that question, that was the longest 45-minute ride home because I really started thinking, man, what could I be capable of? Like if I could replace my income where I didn't need a 40-hour a week or an 80-hour a week or 100-hour a week job, which was more relevant and more true, what could I do? Like what could I create? And at that point, like that was the finite difference between where I was and where I am today. So did you have that same kind of thought process at that point? It sounds like you did, that, wow, like I've replaced a 6-figure income.
It really was at the end of year one where I realized this wasn't just me trying to get a year off. This was actually a viable business because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I hustled the neighborhood kids when the leaves would come down in the fall, and I raked in a bike path, and then I raced it as many times as I could, and I charged them a quarter, and I said, hey, if you get the best time, you can have 2 quarters back. But of course, I was going to win because I kept racing it. So, and
Right,
I
right.
sold dollar bags of candy. I sold beaded necklaces and whatever sports teams. And even at my first company, once I left the sign company and started working with the developer, I started Code Check Professionals because checking the code for signage was a big deal in the sign world.
Mm-hmm.
So I started that on the side, but that still wasn't making real money. So it was after starting my development and consulting company that in year one that I went, whoa, like this is not a side hustle. This is a real deal. You've got real corporate clients that you can scale with, good partners, and there's ongoing revenue and contracts. So that was where it made me start thinking bigger and go, okay, if this is real, I need to level up my game because I'm not going to work 100 to 120 hours a week killing myself if there's a more efficient and effective way to do it. And now, granted, there's lots of really long hours and days,
Of course.
but it's so much more fun when you're the boss. What's the saying as
Absolutely.
an entrepreneur? Like you'll leave a 40-hour a week job to go work 80 hours for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And, I want to get deep on this because I often coach people on the one thing. And what is that one thing? And I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I remember my wife and I at one time, very egotistic and prideful. We had 8 different companies that were in operation at the same time. And that might be fun to say, but the truth of the matter is, and you can relate to exactly what I'm saying, is it wasn't fun. And we were leaving tons of money on the table. We may have been bringing home $300,000 or $400,000 clean every year and living very high on the hog. But at the same time, we were not time rich. We did not have tons of savings, and we were working ourselves to death. And it wasn't until I had, really honed in on what's the biggest domino in the room. And I spent all my time running around, knocking down these little dominoes, feeling accomplished because I'm completing tasks, but I was never knocking down that big one. So walk through your serial entrepreneur path on, what was that one thing? And it sounds like you kind of already answered it. Like you found that this is a valid business. And at that time, how did you change your focus into just spearheading that one thing? And then you started building systems and processes. So can you kind of dissect that a little bit?
So when I needed to dial in the one thing, it was after year one, because year one, I accepted every possible contract. I was like, these people aren't thinking I'm a joke. These people are taking me serious. They're hiring me. So I'm going to say yes to everything. And as I learned over the years, the most powerful thing you can do is say no. Because when you
No.
say yes, there's an opportunity cost to what you're giving up in return. So the most empowering thing was to know, as a business owner, I can fire clients. So when I wrote that vivid vision and I said, from 2016 to 2019, here's what I want out of that, it made me get super clear on the type of clients that I would accept and work with and the ones that I wouldn't. And it was weeding them out to finish contracts but not accept new ones. And at the same time, then understand that part of the reason I didn't like the corporate world is so much is that we didn't have the company cultures that I was really going for. And you learn a lot more from losses than from wins, and you learn a lot more
Oh,
from bad bosses than from good ones. Although the best mentors and bosses can change your world, but so I didn't quite know what a great company culture was, but I knew what it wasn't. And I strive to find the right people who were the right fit, who could add to that together, because the more you can collaborate, then your 10x is easier than 2x, because if you're putting the right people in the right room with the right systems, with the right processes, you can do some really awesome things. So once I did
mm-hmm.
that, then I could start to see, where is the system in my head, because I've done it for so long, and where is it breaking down and my team is struggling. And over time, that's where we refined it. And it was actually in 2020, we had 4 times the work, because part of what we were doing was from California government grants. And I realized I'm the bottleneck and I need to create software. And we don't necessarily have good project management software for development, because it's so
Mm-hmm.
nuanced and so municipality and utility company specific, that I just it was insane. My 2020 was probably 12 to 16-hour days, while also traveling the country in my truck and truck camper with my dog, since the world was shut down. And I remember I'd land at a different friend's house and be like, I need to be on this planning commission for Douglas County. We're updating the code. At the same time, I'm writing this software, putting in links and examples. And I remember being at my sister's house, and she thought I was insane. She's like, do you really work this much? Because I would be up at 5 a.m. working, and I would still be, because I was on the planning commission, I was still on the planning commission when they went to bed. I'm like, I promise I am not this psychotic. This is a
Yeah.
period and a phase in life where I need to make sure the projects are going. I need to build this software, because by doing this today, by doing this hard today, it's going to make tomorrow so much easier. And I agreed to be on the planning commission, so I have to honor that, because I made that commitment. But I know it's going to be over. And I'm happy to say, when I came back around the country in 2021, when the fires pushed us out of Tahoe, I stopped at their house and I was constantly going, can you get off work early? Or where do we go
Yeah.
get mani pedis? Or let's go grab lunch. And they're like, we have to work. I'm like, see, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
I just had a period of
That
time.
that's it right there. So, man, so many times people seen me grind and they got sick of my wins. I only won because I was never afraid to fail, and I would simply outwork anyone. I was relentless, I was nuts, I'm crazy, and I still do it to this day. If there is something I'm absolutely passionate about, there is no sleep till it's done. I don't need sleep. I don't sleep when I'm tired, I sleep when I'm done. And yes, I do respect my age now and getting rest when I need it, because I have realized I can go faster with a clear mind and rested. But at the same time, I am not afraid to work 18 hours a day. And especially when I'm helping other people.
And does
And
it actually feel like work when you're doing
no,
the days?
no,
Exactly.
no, not a bit. But I remember people that I would come into lunch and they could see the tired, they could see the bags under my eyes and everything else. And they're like, that guy, he ain't seeing his family. He's not doing this. He's not just throwing stones. And now I'm like, let's go play golf. Or they see me playing golf, or I'm doing this. And don't get me, I retired at 36, but I'm not retired. I'm retired from everything that I say no a lot now. And I only focus on the things that I can help the most people. And to me, that's reciprocity. I get paid because I help people, and I make other people money because I've helped someone else to get where they needed to go. And that's how I make my money. I get paid to think now. I don't get paid to do. And those same people now today, they're like, wow, you know, same as you. Hey, can you take off some time? Like, what about just calling into work? Like, be a bad employee for a day. Then let's go hang out. Like, let's go do this, and let's go play some golf. Let's go fishing. Let's just go do something. Let's go take a walk in the middle of the day because we can. But it's all because you honed in on that one thing, and you realized that the failing points was you. Like, you had to remove yourself. I'm assuming you probably read the book Good to Great or something like that.
One of hundreds of books, yes.
And you realized that you had to put the right butts in the right seats, and you had to create this culture to be able to build this company to be able to go somewhere. Or, like Stephen Pressfield's Turning Pro. Like, there's so many great books out there. So what was the books that really, like, was that light bulb to you that you can remember throughout your journey?
So many, and I just reread The Alchemist, and that was just a good one in general. But when you have an intention and you set it and you let the universe know, the whole world seems to conspire to help make that come true. So where if you're willing to set the intention and take action and not control every little bit of it, it's kind of crazy what can happen.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something special. And I've also taught this a lot too. I tell people your dreams, tell people your visions. And so many people, they don't do that because they're afraid of what others might say. Now, me, when I tell somebody this great big vision and they're like, Eddie, you're nuts, you're crazy, you shouldn't do this and everything else, that fuels me up. Like, I've got to, go through the process and figure out what what doesn't work before I can figure out that this is not a valid business. Maybe this isn't a good dream, or why it won't work simply. And so when people tell me no, it fuels me on fire. I mean, it just fills my tank.
I love
Same
it
for
when
you?
people tell me that I'm crazy. So one of the ones that I realized, holy crap, my huge dream, I think I didn't shoot big enough as a kid, but on our downstairs basement wall, I put shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll be among the stars. So I just always had this, like, let's have our attainable goals, let's have our medium, let's have our big ones, but then let's have that stretch goal that even if I don't get it, how far did I get just by trying to get there? So for me, growing up in a small farm town in Ohio, I was like, I think it'd be awesome if I had an island someday and I had a little dock I could go out to and I take my pet dog down and the wild dolphin comes up to say hi to us in the morning with
Yeah.
coffee, and like, wouldn't that be great? And so I always would tell people in Ohio, and then when I moved to Florida, I said, I'm going to have islands and dolphins someday. And, they all thought I was crazy and they gave the smile like, that's a good
Mhm.
dream, kid. That's a good
Yeah.
dream. And I realized when I left Florida and went to California, a lot of my Florida friends, who were all anywhere from 5 to 15 years older than me, all said, hey, you're getting that island someday, and I want to be part of this.
Yes.
And so in
Yes.
2015, when I started my company, and I don't tell a lot of people this, but now I have bigger dreams because it came true, but I named it I&D Consulting because I knew I wanted to scale it beyond just Kristi Kandel Consulting. But I didn't need people to know the big why or the big push every day. But I&D stands for Islands and Dolphins.
I love that. I love that.
So that was the daily reminder of, hey, there's your
Yep.
really big goal.
Yeah.
And
So
then
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so full circle, in 2021, I ended up buying down in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, which, while it is an island I share with people, it is an island. And I do
It is.
have the dock, and I do have the dog, and I do have the dolphins that come and play right by the dock. And I remember kayaking and throwing the kayak in one night at sunset. And I just went, oh my goodness, islands and
You did it.
dolphins came true. I didn't
Yeah.
shoot big enough. What? What? But then I
You
also realized that fireworks don't go off and people don't throw this great celebration when you hit the goal. And that made me realize it's actually the journey, not the destination. But it was,
yes. That is the thing. It's you manifested that into existence. Like you willed that into existence and you did it. And you probably didn't realize you did, but you did. And that's the reason that I put at the end of my name BEX, which stands for Be Extraordinary. And the Be Extraordinary really stands for this is the most extraordinary version of Eddie Austin, because the old one, won a lot, very egotistic, very prideful, had this great big fictitious mountain with a great big hole in himself and could never fulfill this. And I was completely missing the mark. And now I remind myself consistently, what is that extraordinary vision I have? For me, and it's amazing, like you found the right people to tell your vision to, and they wanted to help. If you go around and tell people your small visions, they're like, that's great, high five, I'm going to go on with my day. When you tell that to the right person in the right crowd, people want to help, and you need people to help. To get to where you want to go, you have to have people to accomplish these big visions that also believe in it, believe in you, and are willing to help. For me, I was at a conference here a while back and I had got the mic and they had asked, what is your number a month? What is the number that you want to make every single month? And a dollar sign. And the mic had got to me and I stood up and I said $100 million a month. And including the guy that was actually running the entire conference said, sit down. Didn't want to hear it. And I did not sit down. And I said, the reason I want to make $100 million a month is because I want to end homelessness. You can't end homelessness by giving away money, but I want to employ tons of people and resources, and I want to build facilities. So $100 million a month is what I believe it's going to take. And after that, the amount of people that walked up to me and said, I can see it. You're going to achieve this. Like this is, but I got to ask, $100 million a month seems like a lot of money. And I said, well, look, I love founding businesses and starting businesses, buying business, scaling them, the things I do with real estate. I only need to build a company or two that sells for about $1.2 billion to Wall Street about every 2 or 3 years. And if you take $1.2 billion divided by 12, how much is it? And they're like, wow. And I said, that was simple math. I said, it's not that hard. I mean, when you really, everything else is reverse engineering it. What do I need to sell? What company sells for that kind of money? What is the things I can do? And then there's a buyer. If you don't think that there's people buying businesses for $1.2 billion, you're nuts. And there's way more than $1 trillion in this world that circulates all the time. You just got to figure out how to attract it and what you can put a price tag on and sell it. And really, it's just the value ladder, right? So this is, if you want $1.2 billion, and how much value does that business have to where somebody else sees it and they'll pay that much for it?
just even by expressing that goal and that dream that you're going to make come true, how much did you change the way some of those people in that room think? And
Oh, I
how did
did. And
that
they were
change
like,
their lives? Yeah.
so, I mean, the people that walked up, they said, I was just wanting like $8,000 a month, $12,000 a month. I was like, well, I'm going to tell you something. Unfortunately, I hope to offend nobody here, but $12,000 a month, you're vulnerable. Because when you strive to achieve bigger things, you're going to need more expensive lawyers. You're going to need better CPAs. You're going to incur more expenses, your time, your travel, and things that happen. $12,000 will get wrecked in a hurry. You're vulnerable at that point. And they're like, I didn't think about it like that, but now I see it. Like I want to make 50,000 a month. And I was like, you should, because when you make 25, here's the thing. They're like, do you think you're going to make $100 million a month? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm going to shoot for it. And when I make $800,000 a month, I'm still doing pretty good. That's or $500,000 a month. Still doing pretty
Exactly.
good. We're still making an impact on homelessness, I guarantee. And that's the thing is like everybody wants to take their small and just think too small. Think big. And when you think big, people step in, they're like, I don't know how many people, I know at least 3 people came up to me and said, I don't know what it looks like, but I'd be willing to sit down with you. I've got resources and I would love to help you make that. And I think it's possible. I really do. Until I said that, like you said, nobody ever thought about it.
And I
Even
used
the
to,
guy that was, they
yeah, the
asked
guy
me, they said,
running it.
Eddie, why in the world did that guy tell you to sit down? Because he didn't believe it was possible. That's the only thing. He didn't believe it. That doesn't mean I don't. But you got to speak it to the universe. You got to tell these things and you'll be rewarded for it. It may not be the same level. It's probably even more. You know, you really just have to go for the gusto, like just go for it. Well, this has been absolutely amazing, this point. And I want to really hone in on another thing. So everything we just talked about, it took a different version of you. Is that right or wrong? So
100% right.
where you started out from small town, hometown girl in Ohio to today, like you had to create a new version of Christie. And let's go down that road for a minute of like the things that you did different in your life to really become that daily practice that really helped you achieve this. Because I'm going to be completely honest, you can strive to be a millionaire. You won't continuously be a millionaire until you become the person that deserves to have $1,000,000. Because at the end of the day, the people that are millionaires are different people. They have different beliefs. They think about money differently, and you have to be a different person. That's why people that win the lottery, they end up with tremendous financial pain because they've never been that. And they didn't have time to become a person that could manage $1,000,000 or even do good things with it. So let's talk about that. Going down the road from small town girl to where you are today, you manifested all these amazing things. So what were really the things that you did on a daily or monthly practice that got you to where you are today?
In my early years, it was staying curious, and I like to call myself a sponge to where I always liked hanging out with people who were more experienced and older than me because they had such good stories and things to share that changed and broadened my world perspective. I also really enjoyed traveling and relocating. So leaving Ohio and going to Florida was a way to get out of my comfort zone and go, okay, there's new experiences, new people, new things I haven't seen yet. Let's go experience those and be curious and grow and evolve through that. And then when I went to California, same thing. It was a culture shock. It was, wow, this is a whole new world and a whole new animal. But continuously being the sponge and being willing to listen to constructive criticism, because I thought being a young female in the industry, I had to know everything. I had to be really hard and firm with people. And I'm working with people 20 and 30 years older than me. And I remember one of my civil engineers, great mentor, and he pulled me aside and he showed me how to how to kind of navigate development in the sense of like it's a chess match and it's a poker game, and the less you say, the more you're going to learn and the more you're going to understand what everyone needs out of this deal to where you can structure the project to make it a win-win-win for everyone. But you can't do that if you're talking and if you're trying to be, I'm the top dog developer. And then I also had a contractor who he had his best development project manager on the account. And we were doing, they probably got 12 to 15 of the 30 deals a year we were building. And he just kept butting heads. And he pulls me aside and he just helped me see where my communication was failing bad. And I realized he's like, you're burning my best guy out. And I promise he's the one who's going to deliver for you. So being willing to take that and to go, okay, yeah, you're right. I sucked. Like, let me start to change. And they don't need you to be perfect overnight, just knowing that you're willing to be there. And I mean, that guy went on to work with multiple companies, built up in Tahoe, built the Whole Foods and Chase Bank that they put on the South Shore. And as they're under construction, this is almost 15 years later, we're meeting up and we're going to a concert at one of the casinos and just enjoying and catching up on life. And that relationship and that mentorship that I then had with the other guy would never have happened if I was not willing to listen and go, ooh, I'm not perfect. I'm willing to make changes. So those were some big ones. And then personally, I learned a lot from my uncle who ended up dying in 2018 of breast cancer of all things. But 2 years before he passed, he really did a lot of work on himself and went into EMDR therapy. And he was already a great man.
Mm-hmm.
But when he did that, the 180 that happened in his life and such the peaceful energy of someone who's dying from cancer, but he had such a calm and a peace and a love and a great presence about him that it made me go, maybe I should do some work too. And that started my journey into that in 2017. And just we're we're not perfect. We grow up in a broken world, and we're constantly just figuring ourselves out, where we fit in, where we belong, what our purpose is, what our relationships are. And the more that we can just come in from I'm good just as I am, and I can definitely improve, but I'm okay. And good, bad, right, or wrong, I'm okay. And just continuously peeling the onion and trying to be a better version of myself, a better family member, friend, boss, coworker, partner, and just really approaching everything with love. My word of the year is love, because I want to approach every relationship, every collaboration, everyone I meet with just from that, because we could probably use a little bit more of that in the world right now.
Do we ever? I mean, love is the most powerful, you could call it substance, feeling ever. Love move mountains. I mean, it's just amazing when somebody is in love, the power they feel to achieve, to please other people is just, it's profound. It's amazing. I know two of the things that I've really applied to the things that I've done is I really like, you know, Nelson Mandela has an approach that is he waits to the end of the meeting. Now, that's not the person that taught him. His dad is the one that taught him. His dad would go to these meetings, and they would go to this meeting and he would just sit and listen, and he would watch what was going on. And he noticed that his dad, Nelson Mandela's father, when he conducted all of these meetings, they were all in a round setting. They were never on a square table. There was nobody at the spearhead of the table. There was no, king or queen. There was just a round meeting. Everybody was equal. And then the other thing is Nelson Mandela's father would never speak until the very end. And that is really powerful, because in a meeting, when you're trying to learn, I've learned a ton from the people that are speaking, and they feel important. And you can definitely persuade people from when they came in with all their notes. They may never take those out if you spent all your time speaking. But if you let all of them get all their notes out, you're making the most educated decision on that meeting that you could ever have, because you have all the facts from every single party of your employees or your partners. You have all of that right here. You actively listen to every bit of it, and then you come up with the best plan ever. And that plan was never made alone. It was just taking collaboration from this. I like her idea. I like his idea. How can we pair those two together? Because I think that's the best thing we could do. And I think that's really the difference. It really is. Well, this is so amazing. I know we're right up on time. We geeked out for 44 minutes already, which I know we could go on for hours. Tell everyone how they can get in touch with you, because I think anybody listening to this should definitely go check out your website, get in touch with you. I was fortunate enough to like one of your posts, and now I'm getting all of your paid advertisement, which I think is lovely. And I like as much of it as I can, and I've shared it when I could as well. So tell the audience where they can find you.
You, I appreciate that. I tried for the longest time to be the invisible person, because I never had any desire to be known or to be famous. Not for me. But it turns out when you're trying to reach people and empower and teach them and help them grow, you have to become a known quantity. So
That's right.
we have our website, localrealestatedevelopers.com. That is a good way. It's got different links to where you can set up a call directly with me from there. Or you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram, just first and last name. I tried to make myself as visible as possible now, or even go to my website, kristikandel.com, and you
Love it.
can find me there.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. What is your best quote that you've repeated to yourself over the years? What's one that just sticks with you? Motivational quote.
Well, the one that is on my screensaver right now is remember that once you dreamed of being at where you are now. And I
I
like
love that.
that because so many times we get so involved in the weeds and the details of what's happening that we forget to step back and take that perspective to go, holy cow, if you could have told that little girl growing up that she'd be here right now, she would be blown away and so proud of you. And it helps put today's struggles and challenges and obstacles in perspective. And it just really helps you go, okay, I can do this.
Yep. Well, I love that. Thanks for sharing it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. This will be on YouTube, of course. We'll share this to other platforms. Please go check out what Christy does. Please go to her websites, visit them, and just get ingrained in this podcast and learn something. And I just remind you every single day to just be extraordinary and just do the only thing different between ordinary and extraordinary is the extra. And just go that extra mile, listen to the extra 5 minutes, share this with somebody else. Be the extra that the world needs. I thank you so much.